This video we're going to take a look at another slightly different sort of a neck knife from the folks at Schrade. It's a WR4 Water Rat dive knife / neck knife. It's coming up on Survival on Purpose. Welcome back to Survival on Purpose. My name is Brian. Thanks for joining me. So the folks at Schrade were kind enough to send me one of their WR4 Water Rat dive knives. And this is a pretty cool knife, very simple. So let me give a quick disclaimer. I'm not a diver. I've never been scuba diving or skin diving or any of the above. I always wanted to, I never have. So why in the world am I taking a look at a dive knife? I think it has other applications other than just a dive knife. I went on a kayak trip with the Boy Scouts this year, sea kayaking in the Outer Banks. We were out on the water for 4.5, 5 days. And our guide had a knife about this size here, blunt tip knife. It's a different brand. I can't remember what it was, to be honest with you. But he had it strapped onto his vest about right here. So if he needed his knife, it was right there. He could just get it and use it and put it back. But, you know, when you're on a boating situation, sometimes it's advantageous to not have a really sharp, pointy object. So we had dry bags that didn't want to get punctured. If you're on a raft, maybe you're whitewater rafting or something like that, or an inflatable kayak or any of the above, it's just always good to have something that maybe is not just immediately going to poke a hole in something. So even though the corners are kind of sharp on this one, but they always are because they're sharpened all the way to the tip. So anyway, when I got back, I took a look on Schrade's website and saw they had a couple of dive knives, and I got in touch with them asking if they'd be interested in me taking a look at them, and they sent them to me, and so we're going to look at them now. So whether or not you can tell it, I'm not in my high-tech outdoor studio. I'm here at State Park, so don't have all the normal testing facilities, and the stump is not here. So we're going to probably take you down to the old picnic table and take a look at this thing, talk about the specs of it, and then we'll get to doing just a little bit of that dive knife stuff, or just knife stuff. Okay, so once again, this is the Schrade WR4 Water Rat dive knife. The knife features a 3.21-inch double-edged flat-tip blade of HCR13 MOV stainless steel. One edge is partially serrated, the other edge is fine with a line cutter. It's a rat tail full tang with a TPE molded handle with a lanyard hole. Comes with a nylon-filled glass fiber sheath with a breakaway neck chain. Okay, so since I've already admitted that I'm not a diver, I was thinking about some different knife things we could do to kind of test the efficiency of this blade. And start out with, it's got what I think are some really good serrations. These are kind of fine serrations here. There's a big long flat spot here before the serrations on the blade. And then on the back side, a little bit of a kind of a depression here, and then there's a line cutter and a fine edge. I don't really have good experience with any line cutters I've ever tried to use, but we're going to try this one just to see. And this is not the greatest line. This is probably a little big. It's from a pair of sunglass holders that went bad on me. So, but we'll just try it and see. And I don't hold out a lot of hope for it, to be honest with you, even though it looks like a very sharp little groove. Just doesn't have enough room to get any motion and slicing motion. So for a really small line, it's probably okay. But, you know, to be honest, you really don't need it. The knife has got a really good edge on it. And then it's got this really fine serration here, which is pretty cool. And we'll take just a short piece of strapping, and I didn't quite get it because I'm trying to hold too short one, but cuts really well. And then if you lay it down, you can actually cut with a fine edge. You can see it's really sharp. Great job there. So really good edge. I like the fact that it's got these sharp corners on the blunt tip. Really give you a nice ability to do some serious, you know, slicing if you need to. You know, this is again not a bushcraft knife, obviously, but it's a knife, right? So I found some wood here. Thought it'd be worthwhile at least to see how well it does. Maybe on some carving a little bit of wood, and we'll just try the fine edge first. Let me break that up out of the way. There we go. Now might be able to actually carve a few little feathers here. Get that bark out of the way. This is super dry wood. It's been curing in the old wild over there for who knows how long. But not bad really for a dive knife, right? Just for kicks, we'll try the old serrations here and see how well they do. Some serrations do pretty good, some don't. It's actually making left Making some pretty fine little shavings there, which I'm almost out of camera, I'm sorry. So we got that. I noticed earlier this thing's got several ways of striking a ferro rod, okay? So we've got like big flat part here, does great. Even the little curved part here does great. Wow, really great. Then, if you don't want to worry about getting cut, this little exposed pommel back here, it also does great. So we'll just try that here and see if we can spark up some of this dry wood here. All right, I'm going to melt the handle actually, so we'll try this. All right, so it lit her up. Let's put her out now. You don't want to cause a fire. So there you go. Actually, some totally ridiculous tasks that the knife is never intended for. It actually did a pretty good job, and so I imagine it would do a pretty good job of whatever you need it to do if you're diving also. And it's got a pretty good size grip on it. You can actually put your hands up here, and there's enough of a safe area here where you're not going to cut yourself, because you really don't want to hold it back here like this. I think it's designed for that to be your thumb and your forefinger to kind of cradle across that notch, and then it fits really well in your hand. So, but that is all kind of subjective testing. I think it's always important to do some really highly technical testing anytime you test a knife. Okay, like I said, I'm not a diver, but if I were, I can imagine the last thing you'd want to worry about is whether or not your knife is balanced. So it's always good to make sure beforehand. So as part of the service that I offer here, I always like to make sure that any knife I review gets thoroughly tested for proper balance, because I mean you need to know that if you're making a purchasing decision. I'm sure you know I have probably the highest tech state-of-the-art testing facility in the knife industry at the Survival on Purpose Outdoor Studios, but we're not there, so we're going to make do right now. Okay, that's 4 in a row. We're going to call this one balanced. Chuck Norris audits the IRS. So that was a quick look at the Schrade WR4 Water Rat dive knife. Gotta say, I really like this little knife. It's very compact, it's very light. It does every bit of knife stuff I could think of to do very well. And I think it's got some really great features. I like this unsharpened area right here prior to the serrated area, so you can get your thumb up there without worrying about cutting yourself. I like these really fine serrations. They're really good for slicing, strapping, roping, or anything like that. I imagine if you were diving, you need something in case you get tangled up on anything, you can cut it. This fine edge cuts almost everything perfectly, and if it's like a fabric type strapping material, this should cut it really well. I like the fact that it will strike a ferro rod. So, and why would you care about that in a knife like this? Well, if you're using this knife not as a dive knife, but maybe you're on a whitewater rafting trip, or you're kayaking or whatever, this happens to be the knife you've got with you, then you may be camping on the side of a river, or you may have a problem and get stuck, or something might happen. It's just nice to know that whatever knife you might have with you is capable of doing knife stuff. I'd be very confident that I could get a fire going with this knife and a ferro rod. And that's always important to me. So if you're looking for a really cool little knife, you know, for diving or water sports in general, or anything like that, you might want to check out the WR4 from the folks at Schrade. Again, this knife is around the $16 range or something like that. It's not very expensive. It comes with a nice neck sheath that you could actually strap onto a vest. You could strap it onto your belt. It's just pretty versatile because it's got those lanyard slots and holes in it. So this might not be a bad one for you. Once again, thanks to the folks at Schrade for sending me this so I can show it to you. And as always, thank you for watching Survival on Purpose. Thanks for subscribing, for clicking that thumbs up, and for sharing this video with all your friends. And thanks for doing all your Amazon shopping through the Survival on Purpose links. There'll be a link to this knife below, or survivalonpurpose.com/Amazon. Takes you to regular Amazon. You pay regular prices, use your regular Prime membership. It just helps benefit the channel financially just a little bit, and I really appreciate the support. Once again, my name's Brian. You're watching Survival on Purpose. Remember, survival's not an accident, so be prepared. See you next time. I could do without that, to be honest with you. There you go. So some utterly, totally ridiculous task